Good afternoon. I am not Julie Robinson. For those of you who are curious, my name is Duane Ratliff. I'm the Director of Operations for CASIS, the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space. I want to take just 15 minutes in advance of Julie's talk to kind of give you a very high-level overview of what our mission is in parallel with that of NASA. And it's exactly as Lewis described. It's to take advantage of that wonderful floating laboratory that we have in orbit right now, the International Space Station. So I think we have a few slides to put up. So again, this is a pretty high level. We're certainly around for questions should you have them. But here's our mission. It's really twofold, and that is to maximize the value of the ISS to the nation. There was a significant taxpayer support that was provided over the last decade to construct the ISS, and now it's an operational research facility capable of quite a bit of opportunity within material science, physical science, life sciences, human research, Earth observation, space radiation exposure, and much, much more. And our goal really is twofold, and that is to maximize that value through the development of new and novel and diversified research and development, as well as technology development portfolios or research pathways that enable us to take the wonderful steps that have been created in fundamental and applied research and move those through that research pathway into ultimately commercial, tangible product realization. Our second major mission is to ensure that ISS helps us as a nation enhance our ability to teach our upcoming future leaders in STEM, the importance of STEM, and how STEM can help us become a prevailing nation, a leader globally with respect to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're here to stimulate, develop, utilization of U.S. lab by others. And what I mean by that is NASA has their mission, and it's very well focused and very well dedicated, and it's to explore. We work in parallel with NASA. We want to make sure that others, from a government agency perspective, from a private firm perspective, as well as an academic perspective, also take advantage of the opportunity that's on ISS, and that's our charter. And then, as I kind of alluded to, it's our responsibility, it's our mandate to make sure that we can communicate the value of the ISS National Lab so that we do have an increase in the return on investment and that everybody becomes educated and understands what space research opportunities exist and how they can take advantage of it. So this is our pathway to the ISS National Laboratory. It really focuses on three primary constructs. One is to generate interest in using the ISS National Lab. Traditionally, and up until now, the space-based research community has been very tight-knit, has been very close. There's a lot of us that aren't well understood outside of our circle of friends. So it's really our responsibility to make sure that we generate an interest as well as an education on what the ISS capabilities are. Second is to identify and make very transparent as well as expedited our ability to select and prioritize the science that can be conducted in microgravity or with respect to aboard the ISS National Lab. That involves not only a science merit aspect, but it also involves an economic merit aspect. It's CASIS' responsibility to make sure that the science that's selected and prioritized is the best that it can be. It has promise, and part of that promise has economic benefit on the end. And then finally, one of our primary responsibilities is to make sure that we operate and interface in parallel and in synergy with NASA. NASA is the gateway to the ISS, excuse me, and we need to make sure that we're following the proper requirements and that we work with them closely to make sure that the projects that we're supporting through our pathways actually make it to the ISS and are successful. There are some advantages to CASIS. Being a nonprofit entity, a non-NASA agency, we have the benefit, as a result of the generosity of NASA, that 50% of the U.S. research capacity, that allocation is available to CASIS to use. And we want to have that problem where we want to go back to NASA and ask for even more of that. But that's a lot of capacity. So that's a true advantage that we can go out and exploit. We also have the ability to streamline access to implementation partners. Implementation partners are those folks who have a legacy knowledge and history of building spaceflight hardware, integrating science into hardware, creating payloads. Really that entire spectrum from science, concept, and objective to ultimate physical, tangible hardware flight. And matching them up with potential research interests that exist, again, outside of the space-based research and in the larger science community, as well as with potential investors. This is another advantage that CASIS has, is to look at new and novel ways for us to generate the funds that are necessary to conduct science in space. And then payload operational support and straightforward interface with NASA. We're very, very fortunate to have a partnership that we do through our cooperative agreement with NASA. We get to work with them hand in hand on a daily basis to ensure success of payloads in space. And then finally, I mentioned earlier, the accelerated project prioritization and development processes. We're looking at new and novel ways to understand what science has the best opportunity, and we want to make sure that we accelerate that. So here are really our key opportunities to make sure that we can generate that interest in using the ISS National Lab. One is we need to open the opportunity for anyone who has an interest in conducting science in space to be able to have that opportunity. So we openly will request anyone to submit ideas for projects. And the key here is that they don't necessarily have to be funded in advance. They can be funded or they can be unfunded. It's our job as CASIS to take a look at the science objectives. And again, as I mentioned, prioritize them, make sure that they have merit, and then go out and help those science interests find the proper funding that's necessary to be successful and actually fly in space. It's our responsibility to develop relationships. Again, we have a tight-knit space-based research community today. We want to make that bigger. We want to enlarge that. And we want to do that by engaging those who are experienced with supporting spaceflight hardware and payloads, and find opportunities through networking, marketing, interaction with this new user community to make sure that we develop a new and larger excitement about this. What's really important is that we need to be able to translate the benefits of space science into something that's understood by the investment community, by those folks who understand what commercial application is all about, as well as understanding how you can advance knowledge. There's been a lot of work that's been done on ISS, and we need to make sure that we can translate that to these new communities within our marketplace that may not understand that. If we can translate and educate them on how science that's conducted on space has commercial application, has return on investment, has benefit to the knowledge of mankind, that's part of our success. We need to publicize and educate on the research platforms and the capabilities of ISS. We need to work hand in hand with NASA to make sure that everyone understands what truly is available on station. A lot of times we get involved in conversations where we focus on microgravity, but a lot of us understand that the ISS has a lot more capability than that. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we educate the public on that. And then finally, we need to incentivize. We need to make sure that people understand there's a real reason to invest in science on station. That interest and that incentivization needs to come from all the stakeholders. And so we want to be novel in our ways of creating that incentive. There's some ideas that are listed here, and that is by creating membership opportunities for folks to be a part of our network, to generate investment club opportunities, folks who have venture capital interests, who may want to make risky investments but see opportunity at the end. And finally, to increase and enhance STEM. So this is probably a busy slide, particularly from the back of the room, but if you focus on the graphic to the left, this just really provides an idea of how we propose to do this. What that really represents is the fact that there are multiple entry points, there are multiple pathways in which proposals for science can get into the CASIS pipeline, if you will. That's a gigantic funnel. That's what that represents. Obviously, there are some high-level filters that we need to apply. I mean, it needs to be more than just an advertising exploit or see what happens when you put bubblegum in space. I mean, it needs to have a true science objective. But in essence, all these proposals really need to have their time in the spotlight. So they will be input into our database, which will go through a periodic review. Part of CASIS' responsibility is to have both a science and economic perspective on these proposals that we receive, so that we can vet them, place merit upon them, and then ultimately get them to a committee level that can recommend basically a go or no-go. I need to point out that if it is a no-go, if there are issues associated with proposals that we see, we don't want to just take those and throw those out. We want to go back to the originators and make sure that they understand what opportunities exist that they may need to understand better. Our role in doing that is creating relationships with folks who have done this in the past or understand the proper hardware that may be the right choice for them to fly their science, and get them together so that they can polish that proposal a little bit better. But at the end of the day, there will be projects that are approved. If they have funding with them already, they will be accelerated and get into the prioritization pipeline with the NASA Payloads Office. If they don't have the funding that's required, or they don't have the right partners behind them, again, our responsibility will make sure that we use our resources to help them. This is just an example of taking both the economic as well as the scientific valuation and coming up with a tangible number that helps us prioritize and recommend what projects we put emphasis on and may fly first. And then finally, and I think this is probably one of the more important elements that we really need to make sure that we're successful at, and that's our operations interface. Operations to us, as CASIS, probably means something a lot different to what it means to the aerospace community or to engineers. But in essence, it's really what this graphic describes here. It's our requirement to make sure that we collaborate with the science community, and that we support the researchers in understanding that we understand what their science objectives are, so that we can clearly facilitate those appropriate and proper connections with the right implementation partners, with the right hardware, with the right facilities that are on station, and then ultimately coordinate that effort, that project that comes together with NASA to ensure success. A successful mission, which part of that is flight to station, it's on-orbit operations, and then it's ultimately that tangible return at the end of the day. And so our coordination with NASA is crucial as well. What you have at the end is a manifested flight project that's gone through the CASIS organization. And I put this up, and I'll leave this in closing just to say that there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of capacity. There's a lot of availability for us to support projects. And clearly there's no lack of getting them up there on station. So I think, again, as we continue to develop as a young organization, as we continue to grow, it's really one of our responsibilities to make sure that we educate everyone on that the opportunity exists, and it exists today. And so we're open for space. And with that, I'll turn it over to Julie. Thank you.